Right guys, welcome to OurAutoExpert.com. This is a brand new review and it is of this, the new Land Rover Range Rover Velar. A very interesting vehicle, lots of technology, very urban and made for the modern family. But there's things you need to know about this vehicle that are different than any vehicle that they've had in the past. One of them is the advancements in design have allowed them to make things very flush with the car. It's got some super interesting door handles, I'll show you those in a moment, but also this front fascia. Beautiful lights and day and night they've been made so they're flush very much with the front of the car. Big opening grille, big air intakes down the bottom, but the design is very modern, very crisp and very inspirational. But how the car got its name is probably one of the best stories about the new Velar. When they first tested the Range Rover at the end of the 60s and the beginning of the 70s, they wanted to give it a name on the front, on the bonnet, or the hood as we would call it. They wanted to give it a name which, when people came up to the car, they didn't know what it was. This was just for the testing. So the Land Rover engineers looked in their box of letters, and all they had was the letters that made up Velar. So they put that on the test model at the very beginning. Now it does have Range Rover written across the front of the car, but the original was called the Velar as a test model, and this is called the Velar to pay homage to that very first Range Rover. Now let's show you the door handles and see how they're different from anything we've seen before. The door handles on the Velar pop out. They're flush with the car to help with aerodynamics and design, but they pop out in any temperature, either in freezing temperatures of Moscow or in hot temperatures here in California, and you can still get a gloved hand behind to open the door. Well, welcome inside the brand new Range Rover Velar, and we've had a look at the outside, but now I'm with my drive partner in California, and we haven't ever filmed together, so introductions are in order. Jill, you have a very hard to pronounce Italian name that people butcher all the time.
They do.
What's the correct? Teach me how to say your last name.
Okay, so Ciminello.
Okay.
It's a soft, I mean, and that's actually not the Italian pronunciation. Ciminello would be Italian, but
Ciminello.
Ciminello. But I get, you know, Ciminello, Kiminello, Ciminillo. You know, I get the Hispanic pronunciation. But I have to say, having a name like Ciminello spawns a whole bunch of funny offshoots when you think about the fact that you have citronella. Okay. Salmonella.
Ouch.
And Cinderella, which I'm totally down with that one. Yeah. But I had a.
What shoe size are you?
4, actually. I have a really small foot, so Cinderella totally fits.
Under the hood, Range Rover have 3 different engine choices. This is the 6-cylinder, which I've been driving all day. Great power, great speed, and great acceleration. They also have a diesel version of the car if you're looking to fuel economy, or a 4-cylinder for fuel economy as well. You can choose whichever you want in your brand new Velar. This is the diesel that we're in right now. We drove the 6-cylinder first, and then we just drove the 4-cylinder. So let's talk about the difference in driving, first of all. How did you feel about the 6-cylinder?
I really liked the 6-cylinder. I thought it was very smooth. It had the right amount of power for somebody like me. I tend to be a little bit of an aggressive driver, so I appreciate the fact that the V6 has 380 horsepower.
And I felt the same way. I think the car has just enough removal from the road to make it a luxurious, comfortable, uninterrupted drive, but at the same time, enough feedback from the road to make you feel like you're getting a good reading of where you're driving and what you're doing.
Yeah.
The 4-cylinder, which was the second one we drove, I felt a little bit like it struggled with power, but not enough to be debilitating. So. And that may be because we came right out of the 6 into the 4. How did you feel about it?
You know, I totally agree with you. And sometimes it's both awesome and a little bit tough when you're driving vehicles back to back to back, because you're doing the constant comparisons between, well, what did the V6 do as opposed to the 4-cylinder, as opposed to, you know, the diesel. And in some ways it's fair to the car, but it's not fair to the car, because if you drove that 4-cylinder without having driven the V6, I think you would think it was a pretty swell vehicle.
Sure. And I absolutely agree. And then you haven't had a chance to drive the diesel, but it's a bit rough on the low end and low speeds, but on the high speeds, it's awesome. This is great on these roads, you know, I'm getting the adequate amount of power once the engine's all spooled up and ready to go. Turbo big thing for these cars. Supercharged in the V6 as well, which was really great. I think added to the performance value.
I really like the exterior styling. One of my favorite things that they did is the door handles.
That's probably the most significant thing. But the other thing that I hear from Jerry is this car only took place because of advancements in design and design technology.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of flush stuff in this car. On the outside, the light's very flush with the grille, and they look amazing in day and night. There is so much in this car that you don't notice.
Yeah.
And we noticed that the screen here, there's two screens in the car. We noticed the upper screen was actually tilted, and we found out that you can change the tilt in it for the driver, and it's set for that driver.
Yeah.
So when you get
position.
in and you hit the memory position and the seats, this changes too, which is pretty cool. And then there's this screen that has all the digital information on it. It's sort of this just solid piece of glass with two dials in it and a volume switch in the middle, and it's basically push button, but it's brighter than any iPad I've ever seen. It's clean, it's really bright, it's visible, it's easy to see. It's kind of cool, right?
Well, and so what I really like about it, what they've done is they've kind of combined, in my mind, the best of both worlds. Because you have this touchscreen, but they also have what they call I think they call them magic dials. They like I said, the best of both worlds with the dial and the touch.
And I love that. And the same thing with the massaging seats. Like you can change how vigorously they massage you. And I love that it's just clean. It looks clean.
It does.
You can't probably eat chips and push it because you would make nasty, greasy finger marks on it. But it's really clean.
Yeah.
What do you think of all of the information and the technology?
I think they actually work really well together. This car overall looks very modern to me. And it's very... very futuristic. Like, I haven't seen anything so far, and I really love the virtual cockpit in the Audi vehicles, but this dual screen here, what they've done, I mean, Honda and Acura have tried to do the dual screen and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
This works.
On the interior, leather, the top trim. Not only leather is the top trim, but also something called Kavadra. I know it sounds a little bit like a Harry Potter abracadabra saying, however, it's a wool and synthetic material blend. It looks very clean and very modern, but it's made to be extremely wear-ready, and also at the same time, it'll keep stains out of the inside, which means it might be more durable and less hot in the summer than a leather interior. What about the seat configurations? There's an awful lot of ways you can adjust this seat, including something that works for both of us, which is the length of the seat, which I love because I have very short femurs and I like my femur length to be very short.
Right.
Let's talk about the ride height. One thing I love about this is they say there's a rival in elegance.
Oh, yes.
It rides about 8 inches off the ground. You can go up to almost 10, 9.9, but it will also drop 2 inches as well. But this is only on some models that have the special air suspension.
But the top of the line first edition model, I think, is only going to be available for 2018.
Yeah.
And that's going to have
huge wheels, right?
Yeah, big wheels, the air suspension, the dual screens, the 12.3-inch info screen behind the steering wheel.
That is very Audi-esque, whereas we don't actually, I mean, you know what, Jaguar Land Rover have been doing it for a long time. They don't actually have gauges, and their gauges are replaced by a screen in front of the driver, and you can change that information, make it an entire screen, a map, or you can have gauges on it. You can have whatever you want. So there's actually 3 major information points. There's what's behind the steering wheel, there is the information point here, which is kind of the infotainment screen, and then there's this sort of secret touch illuminated screen down the bottom we talked about with the 3 buttons on it. Alright, favorite part of the vehicle?
Seat massagers.
Really?
Come on.
Really? Seat massages. I think my favorite part of the vehicle is two things. One, that you can ford about 2.5 feet of water in this.
Yeah.
I really like that aspect. And it has the elegant arrival where the car drops down and you can get out. For short people like us, it's great. But I think the door handle is probably a big home run for me.
Yeah, the door handles are really cool.
All right, thanks for watching. You can see more videos at OurAutoExpert.com, testmiles.com, where you see that little subscribe button down the bottom. Jill's not going to eat this week unless you push that.
Oh, and I need to eat. I mean, come on. I'm too skinny. People telling me that all the time.